Stories, mostly from one interview, pieces of which found their way into Playboy and Rolling Stone, circulated of the singer living in a house full of ancient Egyptian artifacts. He was burning black candles, seeing bodies fall past his window, tales of having his semen stolen by witches, and receiving secret messages from the Rolling Stones. And he lived in morbid fear of the Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page.
Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy, that's John, and it's time to chow down on some music, metaphorically speaking. John, you're going to offer up a track, an artist for me to go off and check out, and I'm going to come back to you, and we're going to chop it up a bit. That's the usually the rule and how things go over here at the Audiophiles. So, John, what do you have in store for today?
Oh, we are dipping into the wonderful creative well that is the back catalogue of Mr. David Bowie.
Oh, Bowie. All right,
So,
excellent.
yeah, so we've already had a title track from 1973's Aladdin Sane, and I watched some somewhat slightly days from David Bowie, brackets Space Oddity, perhaps 1969. So I forgot I had these actually, but to illustrate our next trick, I will consult my pack of David Bowie top trumps. There's not every character, but there's a few in here, including the one that we're going to visit next. So just to give you a quick sort of idea, you got David Jones when he was starting off.
Yeah.
Major Tom. Ziggy.
Yes.
Aladdin Sane, that obviously we already have broached. Blah 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 blah, and we get to this iteration that we're going to see today, which is the Thin White Duke.
Yes.
From the album Station to Station, and we are checking out the title track. And just to let you know, there are categories within the top trumps, and for the Thin White Duke, Alien Factor is 20. Pop Sensation, 26. This is out of 100, I think. Outrageous Fashion, 21. Hedonism, 65. I'm an Actor, that's a category in it, 8. And Bowie Rating, 82.
Okay.
Strong.
Right,
Strong. I think only Ziggy's higher in terms of Bowie rating. But yeah, so it's a title track, Station to Station. Check it out. Tell us what you think.
Will do. This frictious whirring and whooshing going on just in the right can. Over here. Like harpsichordy, organy type sound. It's like this growing ominous tension to all of this. It's almost like boot stomps. Doom 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 doom. It's a slow burn putting this all together and building it up, but I definitely like the weird feeling all of it has. There's almost this like mechanical vibe to what's happening, especially with a lot of that like the background noises, the more ancillary type instruments or sounds being used, like the friction and that whirring whooshing sound. They all sound like cogs or wheels kind of turning in a machine. But then you've got this like even the drum beat, doo 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 doo. There's something kind of small eye industrial about all of this sound, which is very cool. It's intrigue, but it's also unease. Is that like harmonica? Cranking and winding. And that guitar. There's even these sounds that are like higher in register. It's like what sounds like a harmonica and something else that has almost this like a train whistle sound, like a train's about to leave station or something. It's all very, very mechanical and industrial, and I like it a lot. A lot. I love this juxtaposition of this like harder driving sound and his airier, gentleman-like voice coming in over top of it. It's a very interesting juxtaposition in sounds they've got going here. Let's take that back. Yeah, I know that line. I've heard that.
Here are we, one magical moment, such is the stuff from where dreams are woven. When I'm out loud, venting sound, dredging the ocean, lost in my circle. A magical movement from Gather to Malga. Shine like a deer.
There's more than just a dash of theatrics to Mr. Bowie's delivery here. It's like, here am I, here are we, there are you. I like it. I like it a lot. I know John has often shied away, or says he shies away from, like, when there's too much theatrics in his music. I think clearly there's certain kinds that, understandably, he doesn't gravitate toward. I guess this is one of those areas, the thin strip of Venn diagram where we coexist, because to me this has theatrics to it, almost like feelings of or shades of rock opera type, aesthetics to the sound. I love it. I think it sounds awesome. God, we're not even halfway through this thing, but it was such a nice slow build to get where we are now, and all of these sounds happening while he is almost crooning over top of them in a theatrical way. All of it, oddly, like on paper it sounds like a weird mix, but here we are with the final product, and it sounds fabulous.
From station to station.
Of course, the titular line.
Throwing darts in lovers' eyes. The return of the thin white chick. Throwing darts in lovers' eyes. The return of the thin white chick. Making sure white
These
stays.
little clipped guitar bits.
Once there were mountains on mountains, and once there were sunbirds who soar with, and once I could never be down. Got to keep searching and searching, and oh, what will I be believing, and who will connect me with love?
Sounds like anthemic stadium vibes.
Have you sought fortune in native and shy? Drink to the men who protect you and I. Drink, drink, drain your glass, raise your glass high. It's not the side effects of the cocaine. I'm thinking that it must be long. It's too late to be grateful. It's too late to be late again. It's too late to be hateful. The European canon is near. I must be the only one in a million. I hope that the day passes on her. It's too late to be grateful. It's too late to be late again. It's too late to be hateful. The European canon is here. Should I believe that I've been stricken? Does my face show
More of that goes on, though.
It's too late to be grateful. It's too late to be late again. It's too late to be hateful. The European canon is here. It's too late.
Bass work. So good.
It's too late. It's too late. It's too late. It's too late.
God, this bit, it feels like you're astride a, fervently galloping horse, just flying through the soundscape. It sounds so good.
European canon is here.
Damn. What a rollicking good time that was. Oh my god, man. Lot happening in that. I mean, to the meticulous machinations of the introduction, which ate up a good bit of clock, to just that last half of the song or last third of the song that was just this rollicking bit of music and vocal delivery that was like really underscored by this chopping key work all over the place. You know, there were some glissandos in there, but most of it's just like just keeping everything going. Some killer bass work underneath, and some really stellar guitar work, kind of bending and stretching all over those strings. It sounded awesome. I really wish I could have got. I got lyrics here and there, but I don't think I got enough to be able to cobble them together to get a real narrative out of here. In that latter half, he kept repeating this idea of like it being too late to be late again, too late to be grateful and hateful. I think were some of the, and then he talked about something like the European canon is here or near, and I don't know what the hell that means. It sounded good, but I have no idea what it means. Yeah, and in the beginning there was more of that sort of again I feel like I'm abusing this word, but this sort of theatrical Bowie vocal delivery that then totally shifted once we got into the latter portion of the song, and it became more of this traditional rock and rolly kind of delivery. This was awesome. This was so much fun. It had all these different parts in it that kept everything fresh. It made a song that is, north of 10 minutes feel like a 4-minute track. Because everything was so engaging. And it didn't feel like it was, any one part was exhausted or overused. Everything was fresh. And it was done so in such a way that, again, made a song that rather long feel like it wasn't at all. And that's a feat unto itself. Yeah, this was great. I've heard of the, obviously we know of Station to Station, but I even think that I've heard bits of this track before. I don't know if I've ever sat down and listened to it in its totality from start to finish. Shame on me. Look what I missed out on for all these years. But yeah, this was the track itself, Station to Station. Lot of fun, a lot of fun. This might be Aladdin Sane was groundbreaking and interesting in its own right. Definitely, you could argue that he took a bigger risk writing that song and having those with whom he collaborated do what he sort of dictated or wanted, even if it might fly in the face of mass appeal. And to that he deserves credit, and for that he deserves credit. But this had just as much interesting instrumentation throughout it. But for some reason, it just, I don't know, it resonated with me more. The way it sounded, the way it was all pieced together, how it started and kind of like simmered and then got to this almost like rolling boil, and then took off from there. And yeah, there were parts of it that seemed like anthemic or almost stadium rocking. The way those keys were moving, it almost had this like Elton John type feel to it, but in a different, like sort of in a different light, if that makes sense. All of this, first reaction, just rambling through my how I absorbed the track and what stood out to me, is all to say that this was a lot of fun to listen to. I really enjoyed the track. I'll definitely check it out again, and I'm kind of looking forward to having John piece together, the perhaps the meaning of the song or shedding light on what it means from a lyrical standpoint, but also being as interesting of a character as Bowie is, kind of where he was in his in the timeline that is David Bowie and his output, because he's an interesting guy. There's no arguing that, who went through phases and these different almost iterations of himself. So yeah, John will have all those answers. He'll be able to like connect the dots for me, but I can return to him telling him that this was one hell of a track and I really enjoyed listening to it. So let's get back to him and chop it up.
Nasi Goreng is back. So I'm going to listen to Station to Station by Mr. Bowie. Often described as Bowie's version of Bowie's Stairway to Heaven. Tell us what you think.
Oh man, I had a lot of thoughts when I was listening to this, and plenty of time to think them. Although, admittedly, for a song with that timestamp, flew by. It really did. And most of that's probably because the intro ate up a good like almost 3 minutes of it or whatever it was. But yeah, this was a lot of fun to listen to, and I got to admit, at points throughout it, or there are points within the song that definitely I feel like I've definitely heard this before, but it's been quite some time since I have. Um, so yeah, some frictious scratching and whooshing kind of kick things off for the first minute before some faint guitar feedback leaks into frame. And this is then coupled with more like of this like harpsichordy or organy like notes around the 114 mark, something like that. Bass thuds and muted guitar picking join the mix, and now we have this interesting musical cocktail that mixes together to create a bit of growing ominous tension in the music. And then in walks in this insistent drum beat that moves forward like heavy boot stomps. And there's also what sounds like some harmonica, like blasting notes, like a faint train whistle in the distance. Throughout all of this is that scratching rears its head from time to time and gives it the soundscape this kind of mechanical vibe, as if cogs and gears are grinding away on some massive industrial machine. Very cool. I loved this part so much because of all of the different sounds that were being deployed throughout it. The music shifts significantly around the 318 mark as the beat cuts out and all of the aforementioned sounds subside as Bowie's voice joins the mix and delivers the line, the return of the thin white duke throwing darts in lovers' eyes. And I know I've heard that line before, and not just from you. I know that like hearing him deliver it in real time was like this epiphany moment where holy shit, no, I know I definitely have heard. I don't know if I heard all of it because that intro was completely foreign to me and I loved it. But once we got into the meat of the song, I'm like, oh, I fucking know I've heard this before somewhere at some point in my life. I just can't really put my finger on it. Um, so yeah, as he delivers those lines, you can hear this faint organ work and some clipped guitar work beneath the vocal track. Then that insistent beat drops back in, driving the song forward, and Bowie continues to deliver the verse. And I'm not catching everything he's saying, but he makes a couple of allusions to the ocean at this point. And there are these two lines during the verse where it's actually three, because I think he first says like, "Here am I," but then he delivers the next two versions of that line with this extra level of panache where he's like, "Here are we," and then "There are you." And given that I'm a sucker for a bit of theatrics in my music, I really enjoyed it. It gave this voice character and got a little rise out of me because he just injected like character into his voice and his delivery, which is nothing foreign to Bowie, obviously. He then signs off on this first verse with the titular line, "Station to Station." The music then cuts again, and he delivers that the same line from earlier about the thin white duke, again over top of these very mechanical sounds grinding away beneath this otherwise very soft vocal delivery, which was an interesting juxtaposition in musical approaches, one lyrically and one through the actual music. But to band them together was different and an interesting artistic choice. We then get treated to a bit of airy organ and some quietly clipped guitar before the appearance of an interesting, albeit slightly stuttered drum roll that finds some ginger footing towards its completion, and then launches the song into a whole different direction. I mean, this might as well be a whole nother song. This is brighter and more lively than the preceding bit, almost teetering on this stadium rocker and like this anthemic quality to it, with this really full sound. Um, and now instead of allusions to oceans, Bowie talks about the mountains on mountains. He goes on to mention that once he could never be down, but now he must keep searching and searching. He also questions what he'll be believing and who will connect with him with and who will connect him with love. He wonders, 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 and honestly, at this point, I'm not sure what he's talking about, but he sounds like he's having an existential crisis. Then in the moment, that I can clearly relate to, he seems to respond to all of this by drinking, or at least he mentions drinking quite a bit. And then he mentions it's not the side effects of cocaine, and that he's thinking it must be love. And now I'm just
Of course it
envisioning.
is. Of course
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
right. Yeah, if it's not a lot of cocaine, it's just butterflies in your belly over a love interest. So I'm just envisioning him doing hella blow and chasing it with drink, which sounds like one hell of a night out. I know he discussed this before, and I have been and I've even alluded to it once during the this track reaction already. But this is more than just a little theatrical, both in arrangement and in Bowie's vocal delivery. It's almost flirting with rock opera, in its sounds and its tropes, which is kind of interesting coming from you, but it's also Bowie. So, I mean, everybody's got an exception to their rule. And we are now in what I call the "It's Too Late" portion of the song, which has all of this great movement, and just a touch of some lovely bass work. But the keys really shine as they jangle and clang along to the rollicking rhythm of the song. It's really upbeat and infectious. Also, somewhere in here, I catch a more than one glissando of the keys, and even more of that killer bass fill work, which I really enjoyed a lot. Just this whole portion of the song was great. After this, we get treated to some great guitar work over top of that killer bass and those keys that just chop away through the soundscape, all while Bowie continues to profess it's too late for this or that. I think to be grateful or to be late again or to be hateful, there are all the things it's too late for. Thank God he repeated it hella times so I could eventually catch all of them. He punctuates this bit each time by reiterating that the European canon is near. No idea. I have zero clues as to what that means, but it sounds like some kind of warning or caveat that one should be wary of. He drops a couple of lines in between each of these chorus-like too late stanzas, but eventually the raucous bit begins to fade out, hand claps and all, until we reach the end of the track. And yeah, this really was an epic by Mr. Bowie. Plenty of moving parts and shifting motifs throughout. Again, it felt larger than something simply made to be a track on a record. It had this performative nature to it, as if it was almost too large in scale and scope to be confined to just the audio medium. Nonetheless, I enjoyed it very much, though admittedly I didn't latch onto any definitive meaning or theme within the lyrics. So I'm going to need a hand there. There were at points, listening to the way that piano just chopped away reminded me of like, and I don't know if you would consider these guys contemporaries, or like if I know one probably got their start before the other, but around the same time, I don't know, just kind of reminded me of some Elton John piano work. Just how punchy and stabby it is, and how infectious it sounded. You get that a lot with you know, when you're listening to Elton John. So I really enjoyed this song. I mean, I don't think it was as brave of a track as Aladdin Sane from a musical choice and decision making standpoint, but that isn't to say it didn't lack um interesting efforts and arrangements and I mean it's just a tick short of that musical bravery that we found in Aladdin Sane, and yet I think for obvious reasons, because perhaps some could consider Aladdin Sane to be borderline too brave, I enjoyed this a bit more than Aladdin Sane. This the way it flowed, each part, the intro really, I think, was my favorite because it was so fucking intriguing. Yet by the end of it, it didn't seem to be wildly apropos of the larger story or picture. You know what I mean? It was kind of like its own standalone, really interesting bit of art. Then it was like these other two parts that came after it, both of which were really great as well. I loved each of them, but it was just like this trinity of sounds and portions that were cobbled together by, sure, it's not the most seamless transition when you have this stuttering, fumbling drum roll that takes us to the last bit, but I mean that's this much of a 10-minute song, you know what I mean? It's not very important in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, I think in total this was my favorite Bowie track that we've done thus far. I really enjoyed it.
Interesting. You sort of says in terms of musical bravery. I think because Aladdin Sane features some avant-garde stuff, it will always be avant-garde, if you know what I mean. Whereas the music he came out with this track and this album was a massive step forward and was some hell of a new stuff which other people have not heard before. We have heard lots of it since, and people have picked up on this and following albums and based their whole musical careers on what Bowie sort of created.
Mhm.
But the other really interesting thing is you could see this, and you mentioned it as art. It's almost like a stage show.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the first
Performing.
bit is this industrial piece, and it's almost like the stage shifters are putting everything into place, all the scenery, and it's all sort of moving parts, and you get this industrial sounding, but industrial in terms of almost steampunk, that sort of, big pistons and train, obviously, Then the second bit is almost like Brechtian theatre, and it goes drink, 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 and you can imagine him on the stage, and it is definitely theatrical.
Oh yes.
And then the third part is this sort of really interesting groove that's taken from a bit of krautrock and some other stuff as well, then pushed forward. He was doing this soul and R&B previously as well. But all three parts, really interesting, I think, have kind of almost a German feel to them. And yet this is prior to him going off to Germany and living there for like 3 or 4 years. It's all really interesting stuff. Anyway, we're going to this. So, we've done a couple of Bowie tracks as we've discussed already. This will be part of added to that playlist. Go back and check it out if you want to learn a bit more about Mr. Bowie, in particular the first one we did, Aladdin Sane, where I talk a bit more about how he got started, etc. But so I'll concentrate just on this period. So it came off the back of real commercial breakthrough for David Bowie in America when he released the previous album, Young Americans, the year before in '75. This album is regarded as one of his most significant works, and the album was a vehicle for a new persona of his, which he took on many, as we know, throughout his career, and this one being the aforementioned Thin White Duke. The album was co-produced by Bowie and Harry Maslin, and Station to Station was mainly recorded at Cherokee Studios in Los Angeles, California, in late '75, just after Bowie had completed shooting the film The Man Who Fell to Earth. And the cover is a still from that film. During the sessions, Bowie was suffering from various drug addictions, most prominently cocaine, and later said that he recalled almost nothing of the production of this album. Musically, Station to Station was a transitional album for Bowie, developing that funk and soul from Young Americans, as I said, and then presenting a new direction influence on the German music genre of krautrock, particularly bands such as Neu and Kraftwerk. And the lyrics reflected Bowie's preoccupations with Friedrich Nietzsche Aleister Crowley, mythology and religion. So the title track that you listen to introduces Bowie's new persona, the Thin White Duke, who became a mouthpiece for Station to Station, and often a mouthpiece for Bowie himself in the next sort of 6 months. The character was inspired by Thomas Jerome Newton, the character from the Manifest Worth, and is at first glance a more conventional sort of persona than Bowie's previous characters. So he's not a space alien or dressed up in stockings and stuff like that. He sports a well-groomed blonde hair and a simple cabaret-style wardrobe, white shirt, black trousers, waistcoat. However, he has been described, this persona, as a mad aristocrat, an amoral zombie, and more importantly, an emotionless Aryan Superman. A lot of neat stuff flying around. Bowie himself described the character as a very Aryan fascist type. Yeah, that's a word to remember. A would-be romantic with absolutely no emotion at all, but who spouted a lot of neo-romance. The Thin White Duke was a controversial figure. While being interviewed in the persona in 1975 and 76, Bowie made statements about Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany that some people interpreted as being sympathetic to fascism or even pro-fascist. In later years, Bowie recalled the mid-70s as the darkest days of my life due to astronomical usage of cocaine and amphetamines. For much of 1975, he was obsessed with satanic symbols, remained awake for 4 or 5 days at a time, and he lived on a diet of red and green peppers, milk, and drugs. I do know that at one point he went down to 80 pounds in weight, which is not a lot.
No.
Stories, mostly from one interview, pieces of which found their way into Playboy and Rolling Stone, circulated of the singers living in a house full of ancient Egyptian artifacts. He was burning black candles, seeing bodies fall past his window, tales of having his semen stolen by witches, and receiving secret messages from the Rolling Stones, and he lived in morbid fear of the Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page. He quotes, "It was a dangerous period for me," he explained. "I was at the end of my tether physically and emotionally, and had serious doubts about my sanity." No shit, Sherlock.
Yeah,
So, personnel for the album: Bowie, vocal guitars, tenor and alto sax, Mini Moog, Mellotron, Carlos Alomar guitar, Earl Slick guitar, fantastic geezer, George Murray bass, guitar, Dennis Davis drums, Roy Bitton piano, organ, Warren Peace backing vocals, percussion, and Harry Maslin, a melodica, synthesizer, vibraphone, baritone sax, and co-producer. So the album reached number 5 in the UK and number 3 in America, so huge success. It was also a top 10 in Australia, Canada, Netherlands, France, Japan, and New Zealand. And it was certified gold in Canada, UK, and the USA. And the album was sold 3.4 million copies worldwide as of 2016. I suspect since his death, that figure is a lot larger. Retrospectively, Station to Station is viewed as one of Bowie's best and most significant works. Station to Station has frequently appeared on several lists of the greatest albums of all time by multiple publications. In 1995, it was ranked number 21 in Mojo's list of the 100 greatest albums ever made. It's the highest ranked Bowie album on that list. In 2003, Rolling Stone ranked it number 323 on their list of 500 greatest albums of all time. When they revised the list in 2020, it was number 52. So that shot up the charts a bit.
Wait, when was the first list published?
2003.
Of course. Yeah.
And then after his death.
His passing, yeah.
Yeah. 2013, Enemy ranked the album 53rd in their list of 500 greatest albums of all time. Uncut ranked the album 30th in their list of 200 greatest albums of all time. And the album was also included in the book 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. And it just so happens. There's Deborah.
Oh my God.
So if we go to the place, really interesting, actually. On the page, there is Mr. David Bowie, Station to Station. Cheek by Jowl next to the Modern Lovers that we heard some from for Jonathan Richmond. Joni Mitchell, Boston. And over the page, Eagles Hotel California. I really, really got very sick of that album because anyway, ABBA Arrival, Kiss, Destroyer. Um, Other way, Curtis Mayfield, There's No Place Like America Today, which is a fantastic album. And Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, which I really actually haven't listened to that first album. Earth, Wind and Fire, and away you go. What a time to be alive. So the lyrics. Now I put in my notes here, brackets, intro. I will just say this. Um, the instrumental introduction is 3 minutes and 18 seconds long.
Yeah.
And it kind of puts me in mind. I'll just go to another thing really briefly. But a couple of weeks back, I was talking in the office with people I was with. And as I say, there's a lady in the 60s, a lady in the late 50s, another lady in the late 50s, and a lady in she's 28, but she's going on 14. And I said, she said, well, so I'm seeing Andy tonight. So what are you going to discuss? And I said, oh, it's a track called Zombie by Fela Kuti. She said, oh, I've never heard of it. And so I played it on my phone. And honestly, after about 30 seconds, you could see her starting to squirm. It was a physical reaction. She said, where's the song? I said, it's playing. There's no words. And this is, and the TikTok effect was like right there in front of me. She was physically uncomfortable because the song hadn't kicked in within 12 seconds.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And if I played her this, I mean, it would break her. It
Oh
really
yeah,
would.
yeah.
But so anyway, that was really interesting. A bit more on that intro in a bit after I finish the lyrics. So, the return of the Thin White Duke, throwing darts in lovers' eyes, the sort of announcement. And then we're on the stage. Here we are, one magical moment. Such is the stuff from where dreams are woven. Reference to The Tempest, Shakespeare. Bending sound, dredging the ocean, lost in my circle. Here am I, flashing no colour, tall in this room overlooking the ocean. Here are we, one magical movement from Kether to Malkuth. There are you, you drive like a demon from station to station. The return of the Thin White Duke, throwing darts in others' eyes, is repeated twice, and then return of the Thin White Duke, making sure white stains. Wonder what that could be. Tempo change. Once they were, and it's sort of like, chirpy little drinking. They were in their club, knocking flagons together at this point. Once there were mountains on mountains, and once there were sunbirds to soar with, and once I could never be down. Got to keep searching and searching. Oh, what will I be believing, and who will connect me with love? Wonder who, wonder when. Have you sought fortune evasive and shy? Drink to the men who protect you and I. Drink, drink, drain your glass, raise your glass high. And then that another shift again. It's not the side effects of the cocaine. I'm thinking that it must be love. It's too late to be grateful. It's too late to be late again. It's too late to be hateful. The European canon is here. I must be only one in a million. I won't let the day pass without her. It's too late to be grateful. It's too late to be late again. It's too late to be hateful. The European canon is here. Should I believe that I've been stricken? Does my face show some kind of glow? It's too late to be grateful. It's too late to be late again. It's too late to be hateful. The European canon is here. Yes, it's here. It's too late. 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 The European canon is here. Then we got a lovely guitar solo. It's not the side effects of the cocaine. I'm thinking that it must be love. It's too late to be grateful. It's too late to be late again. I must be one in a million. Should have been stricken and face glow. Too late. Too late. Too late. It's too late. The European canon's here. So much like someone who is on cocaine, boringly repeating themselves over and over again.
And also the energy in this part of the song, like for some reason, like a song that has always put me in this mood of being like slightly late for a flight is Back in the USSR. For some reason, when that comes on, I'm always thinking like, oh my God, I gotta get here. Like it just has that feel to it, of like you're slightly late to be at a destination. And this portion of the song, I felt that same weird visceral feeling just come up out of nowhere where I'm like, oh God, I gotta be somewhere. It just has that movement to it. So it was just odd.
It does.
Yeah, it's very cocaine-y.
Yeah, it's almost an uncontrolled momentum, isn't it? This is hurtling you forward. Yeah. So the title, the 10-minute track has been described as heralding a new era of experimentalism for Bowie. The song is obviously split into these parts with a slow hypnotic march. introduced by a noise resembling a train, and that was created by Earl Slick on a guitar using flanges and delay effects.
Yes, okay.
Before it abruptly changes. Yeah, before it
Trains kept
abruptly
coming to
changes.
mind. Trains kept coming to mind during that part.
It abruptly changes into what Rolling Stone calls a celebratory groove, which lasts for the rest of the track. Pitchfork defined the track as a momentous prog disco suite, and Rolling Stone described it as a krautrock disco opus. With its krautrock influence, it is the album's clearest foretaste of Bowie's subsequent Berlin trilogy. No Heroes and Lodger. Despite the noise of the train in the opening moments, Bowie himself said the title of Station to Station does not refer to railway stations, but to the Stations of the Cross, which are a series of 14 images depicting Christ's path to his crucifixion, each symbolizing a stopping point for prayer. He added it was about the Kabbalistic tree of life, evident in the line from Kether to Malkuth, which bookends the tree of life. Of course it does. Silly of me not to spoil that. So you've got this weird imagery that he's thrown in all sorts of things, and this is obviously Judeo-Christian imagery. You've got this Nietzsche stuff as well going on. It's, yeah. So just following on, I mean, this trying to make sense of a lot of this is very difficult. I think he's famous for his cut and paste sort of methodology of lyrics and creating stuff which he thinks is sometimes there's a narrative, sometimes there isn't. I think in this it's just various insights that he's got, some of which will make sense to him only at the time. But there's definitely some weird imagery going on in there, and what it means, I have no idea. Sorry. Anyway, just to follow on from this, in an attempt to salvage his mental and physical health, Bowie left California's drug-fueled social scene for Europe in late 1976. He stayed in Geneva in Switzerland for a while before joining his friend Iggy Pop in West Berlin in early 77. Has said that when he first came to LA, I did read this, I didn't write this down so from memory. I believe when he first sort of called in on the West Coast, he called in to see Iggy, his friend, and he just couldn't reconnect with him because of the heroin that Pop was consuming was destroying everything.
Yeah.
And it was, even though Bowie was virtually fading away at this point, he managed to get his friend into a clinic and save his life.
Yeah, there's some
which is
irony in
amazing.
all that, though, isn't it? To like
Exactly.
flee the drugs of LA to go off to only hang out with Iggy Pop in Germany, who's like just
Probably the
filled with
worst.
heroin.
But there you go. Although he did not publicly retire the Thin White Duke, as he had done with Ziggy Stardust, as he had staged this the last time, he did not appear in that persona again after settling in Europe. I think it was an interesting thing, but probably a little bit misjudged. He got sort of, embroiled with all the sort of Nietzsche imagery, and that very easily crosses over into fascism, or was used by the fascists. And,
Sure.
So Bowie lived in West Berlin for almost 2 years, during which time he moved on both musically and personally with his Berlin trilogy of albums, as I said before, Low Heroes and Lodger, in collaboration with Brian Eno and Tony Visconti. It was quite amazing because he had a massive writer's block and then out it came. And at the same time, he also produced Iggy Pop's first two solo albums, The Idiot and Lust for Life. And I have to say, he pretty much wrote most of them as well. They're almost David Bowie albums. But as the saying goes, more on that later. So there you go, Station to Station, a bit of an epic, and really, really interesting. And again, no matter what you say, it just shows the creativeness of Mr. Bowie and what he can knock out, compared to the other stuff you listen to. It's very different.
There.
So yeah, so this is a bit of a firm favourite of mine. I have to be honest, if I'm being really sort of shallow, I bloody love that last bit where he's like going, it's too late. So it's just got such a groove to it. It's fantastic. The other stuff's really interesting, but the sort of groove, I'm sucker for that stuff.
Oh no,
So
it was
there you go.
infectious, man.
Yeah, definitely. Right, I should wrap things up. Thanks for listening to this, Andy.
Thank you.
Folks out there, please tell us what you think. If you like this, do hit the like button. Drop your comments about Mr. Bowie, about this song in particular and the album, which is a great album, actually. I really, really like this album. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. We really appreciate everybody that supports the channel and moves us on up the tree of life. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.